Monsters don't hide under your bed, they whisper in your ear, and smile when you call them imaginary.
Chapter 1, Reflection. I've always thought of myself as an ordinary guy. My name is Mike Reynolds, and I live in a small suburban town just outside of Portland, Oregon. Life here is predictable: coffee shops on every corner, friendly neighbors who wave as you pass by, and the hum of lawnmowers filling the air on Saturday mornings. It's the kind of place where nothing ever really happens, the kind of place where people feel safe. At least, that's what I used to think. I work as a freelance graphic designer, which means I spend most of my days in my home office. My wife, Emily, is a nurse at the local hospital. She's got this incredible ability to light up a room, even after a 12-hour shift. Together, we've made a cozy life in our modest 2-story house on Maple Lane. It's not perfect, but it's ours. A few weeks ago, Emily and I decided to do some redecorating. The house was built in the 1970s, and while we'd updated most of it over the years, the upstairs bathroom still had that vintage vibe, not in a good way. Emily found an antique mirror at a flea market downtown and insisted we install it. It has character, she said, her green eyes sparkling with excitement. Besides, it'll give the bathroom a touch of elegance. I wasn't so sure. The mirror was large, with an ornate, gilded frame that looked like it belonged in a haunted mansion. But Emily loved it, and I couldn't say no to her when she smiled like that. So, we brought it home, cleaned it up, and hung it above the sink. That's when things started to feel off. At first, it was subtle. I'd catch myself glancing at the mirror as I brushed my teeth, feeling an inexplicable chill run down my spine. Emily joked that I was being dramatic. "It's just a mirror, Mike," she'd say, laughing as she kissed my cheek. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something wrong with it. A week later, I noticed the first real anomaly. It was late, well past midnight, and I'd just gotten out of bed to grab a glass of water. As I passed the bathroom, I glanced at the mirror. My reflection was there, of course, but something about it didn't seem right. It moved, differently. Not much, just a fraction of a second out of sync with me. I blinked and stepped closer, studying the glass. My reflection stared back, perfectly normal. Maybe I was just tired. The next morning, I told Emily about it. She laughed and teased me for watching too many horror movies. "You're letting your imagination get the better of you," she said, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I could tell she was humoring me. That evening, I was alone in the house. Emily had taken an extra shift at the hospital, and I'd decided to spend the night catching up on work. Around 10 p.m., I heard it, a faint sound, like a whisper, coming from upstairs. I froze, my fingers hovering over my keyboard. The house was old, and it made noises. Creaking floorboards, groaning pipes, I was used to all of it. But this was different. I stood at the bottom of the staircase, staring into the darkness above. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing through the empty house. No response. I shook my head and laughed nervously. "Get a grip, Mike." But as I turned to go back to my office, I heard it again. This time, it was clearer. A soft, almost melodic whisper. My name. Mike. Every hair on my body stood on end. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, my heart pounding as I climbed the stairs. The sound seemed to be coming from the bathroom. I hesitated at the door, my hand trembling as I reached for the light switch. The mirror was there, just as it had always been. The ornate frame gleamed under the fluorescent light. I stepped closer, staring into the glass. My reflection stared back, perfectly synchronized with my movements. For a moment, I felt ridiculous. I'd let my imagination get the better of me again. But then it happened. My reflection's lips moved. "Mike," it whispered, though my own lips had not. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the bath mat. The light flickered, and for a split second, I thought I saw something behind the glass, a shadow, shifting and writhing like smoke. Then everything was still. The mirror reflected nothing but my pale, terrified face. I ran out of the bathroom, slamming the door behind me. My hands were shaking as I fumbled to call Emily. She didn't answer, of course. She was probably busy with a patient. I left her a voicemail, my words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "Emily, something's wrong. It's the mirror. I don't know how to explain it, but there's something in it. Please call me as soon as you get this." I spent the rest of the night in the living room, every light in the house turned on. I didn't go back upstairs. I didn't dare. The next morning, Emily came home to find me asleep on the couch. She listened patiently as I recounted what had happened, her expression shifting from concern to skepticism. "Mike," she said gently, "you've been stressed lately. Maybe you should take a break from work. Get some rest." I wanted to argue, to make her understand, but the words caught in my throat. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was just imagining things. But deep down, I knew better. Something was wrong with that mirror. And it wasn't done with me yet. Chapter 2, Whispers in the Dark. The following night, the noises started again. At first, it was faint, just the creak of floorboards or the distant hum of pipes. But soon, it grew louder, more distinct. I lay in bed, wide awake, straining to make sense of the sounds. It was almost rhythmic, like footsteps pacing back and forth in the hallway outside our bedroom. "Do you hear that?" I whispered to Emily, who was half asleep beside me. She groaned and pulled the blanket over her head. "It's just the house settling, Mike. Go to sleep." I wanted to believe her, but something about the sound felt deliberate, purposeful. I got up, my heart pounding, and peeked into the hallway. It was empty, the darkness stretching out like an open maw. Still, the footsteps persisted, now accompanied by a faint rustling, as if someone, or something, was brushing against the walls. In the morning, I found the picture frame on the living room mantel lying face down. It was the one of Emily and me on our wedding day. The glass was cracked, a jagged line running straight through our smiling faces. "Must have fallen," Emily said when I showed her. But the frame hadn't fallen. It had been placed carefully, deliberately. I didn't say this out loud. What would be the point? That afternoon, I noticed things missing. Small items, my keys, Emily's watch, a pen I'd left on the desk, gone without a trace. Later, they'd turn up in strange places, my keys on the kitchen counter when I was sure I'd left them by the door, Emily's watch sitting on top of the bathroom mirror, the pen balanced precariously on the edge of the sink. "It's probably just you being forgetful," Emily said when I brought it up. You've been preoccupied lately." She wasn't wrong. I had been preoccupied, but not with work. It was the mirror. Every time I passed it, I felt it watching me, its presence pressing against my mind like a weight I couldn't shake. Yet, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was sleep-deprived. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. One evening, Emily's friend Rachel came over for dinner. She was loud and cheerful, the kind of person who could fill a room with her energy. As we sat in the living room chatting, Rachel glanced up the stairs. "Hey, what's with the creepy mirror?" she asked, nodding toward the bathroom door, which had been left ajar. Emily laughed. "Mike thinks it's haunted. He's convinced it's been messing with him." Rachel's face turned serious. "Haunted mirrors are no joke," she said, only half in jest. "My grandma used to say that mirrors can trap spirits. You ever try covering it up?" I stared at her, my stomach twisting. "Why would I do that?" Rachel shrugged. "Just saying, it might help." Her words stayed with me long after she left. That night, I draped a sheet over the mirror, feeling ridiculous as I did it. But for the first time in days, I slept soundly. When I woke up, the sheet was gone, neatly folded on the bathroom counter. Chapter 3: The Climax of the Threat. The handprints on the mirror didn't fade with time. No matter how much I scrubbed, they remained, as though etched into the very fabric of the glass. Emily refused to acknowledge them, brushing off my growing panic as exhaustion. "It's just smudges, Mike. Maybe you're not cleaning hard enough." But I knew better. That evening, Emily went out to meet a friend, leaving me alone with the house and the cursed mirror. I tried to keep busy, watching TV in the living room, but the soft creaks and groans from upstairs kept pulling my attention. Each sound seemed more deliberate, more intentional, as though something was moving around just out of sight. I couldn't take it anymore. Armed with a flashlight and the shaky remnants of my courage, I went upstairs. The bathroom door was ajar, revealing the faint glint of the mirror in the dim light. As I stepped inside, the air felt heavier, colder. My breath fogged up the glass, but the handprints were still visible, untouched by the condensation. "Show yourself!" I shouted, my voice breaking. The silence that followed was deafening, pressing in on me from all sides. Then, the lights flickered. The reflection in the mirror darkened, the edges of the glass shimmering like ripples on water. My own face stared back at me, but something was wrong. My reflection's eyes glowed faintly, an unnatural, sickly green. And then it smiled, a crooked, unnatural grin that I couldn't replicate. I stumbled back, tripping over the edge of the bathtub. The reflection moved closer to the glass, pressing its hands against it. I could feel the vibration in the air, as though the mirror was humming with energy. "Mike, help me," it whispered, its voice a distorted echo of my own. "They're coming." The lights went out completely, plunging me into darkness. The only illumination came from the faint glow of the mirror. I scrambled to my feet, my heart hammering in my chest. The reflection was gone, but the glass swirled with shadows, shapes that writhed and twisted like living smoke. Then, the bathroom door slammed shut behind me. I banged on the door, screaming for help, but my voice seemed to be swallowed by the oppressive silence. The mirror pulsed with light, the shadows within forming a grotesque figure, a tall, skeletal being with hollow eyes and clawed hands. It reached out toward me, its movements jerky and unnatural, like a puppet on frayed strings. Just as it seemed the figure would break through the glass, the door burst open. Emily stood there, her face pale and eyes wide with terror. "Mike! What's happening?" I grabbed her hand and pulled her out of the bathroom, slamming the door shut behind us. The house seemed to shudder, the walls groaning as though under immense pressure. We ran downstairs, not stopping until we were outside, the cool night air biting at our skin. Emily clutched my arm, tears streaming down her face. "Mike, what's going on? What did you see?" I couldn't find the words. All I could do was stare up at the bathroom window, where the faint glow of the mirror still shone, its light flickering like a heartbeat. Whatever was in that mirror, it wasn't done with us. And I feared that escaping the house wouldn't be enough to escape it. Chapter 4: Confrontation with Horror. The next day, Emily and I didn't dare go near the bathroom. We both tried to act like nothing was wrong, clinging to some semblance of normalcy. But the tension was palpable, and the oppressive presence of the mirror seemed to hang over us even from behind the closed door upstairs. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what we were dealing with. Emily refused to go back upstairs, so I went alone. Armed with a hammer and a sledgehammer I dug out of the garage, I made my way to the bathroom. The hallway seemed unnaturally dark, the air heavy as though the house itself was alive and holding its breath. When I opened the bathroom door, the mirror greeted me with its faint, eerie glow. The handprints were gone, but the surface seemed to ripple faintly, as though it were water instead of glass. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. "All right," I said, my voice trembling. "Show yourself." The mirror's glow intensified, and my reflection appeared again. But this time, it wasn't a perfect replica. The figure in the glass looked more haggard, its eyes sunken and its expression twisted into a sneer. It raised a hand, its movements slow and deliberate, but I didn't raise mine. "You're not me," I said, gripping the hammer tightly. "What are you?" The reflection tilted its head, its lips curling into a cruel smile. "I'm what you buried," it said, its voice echoing faintly. "And I'm here to collect." The shadows within the mirror began to twist and coalesce, forming grotesque shapes that pressed against the glass as though trying to escape. Suddenly, the mirror cracked, thin spiderweb fractures spreading across its surface. But instead of breaking, it seemed to open like a door, revealing a void filled with writhing shadows and piercing whispers. I took a step back, but the figure in the mirror reached out, its skeletal hand stretching through the cracked surface. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to speak directly into my mind. "You let me in, Mike. There's no going back." Summoning all my courage, I swung the hammer at the mirror. The glass shattered, shards flying in all directions. But instead of falling to the floor, the shards hovered in the air, spinning violently and forming a vortex of light and shadow. The skeletal hand dissolved into the vortex, but the room shook violently, and the whispers turned into screams. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut, locking me inside. The vortex grew, its pull dragging me closer. I clung to the edge of the sink, my feet slipping on the tile floor as the force intensified. "You can't escape what you've unleashed," the voices screamed in unison. With a desperate cry, I reached for the sledgehammer and hurled it into the vortex. The impact caused a blinding flash of light, and the room fell silent. When I opened my eyes, the mirror was gone, replaced by an empty wall. The bathroom was still, and the oppressive air had lifted. I stumbled out of the room, my body trembling. Emily was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, her face pale with worry. "Mike? What happened?" "It's gone," I said, my voice hoarse. "But I don't think it's over." As we stood there in the dim light of the hallway, a faint whisper echoed through the house, chilling me to the bone. The battle with the mirror was over, but I knew the war was far from finished.